Yeah, good afternoon. I will check the attendance after the class. I didn't bring the attendance paper. So today we are going to talk about the corporate governance. So I think this is also very interesting topic for the like people who try to study the business, and also not only business studies, especially in strategy, it is also important in business and society. So for those of you who not really clearly understand the decision-making mechanisms of the companies, also for those who not really understand how the companies actually run, probably this issue may be not really familiar to you guys. So we need some explanation first before we cover the chapter, right? I just prepare some PowerPoint. It is about Korean Air crash in 1997 in Guam, right? I think, I mean, flying this day is kind of a very common, right? So lots of tourists. So you actually had the lots of experience of flying, right? So I believe that the airplane is the most and the safest transportation. Is it true? Yeah, if you see the number of passenger and the frequency of the flight, certainly also if you look at the how often you experience air crash, probably the airplane truly the most and the safest transportation. Like Korean Air, for instance, and Asian Airline is truly one of the very safest airline companies in the world. However, like even 20 years ago and even like 10 years ago, people, cause the passengers, especially the Korean Air, had the kind of notorious for their airplane crash. I mean, I remember that somewhere in 90s, I mean, the time in 90s, we had a lot of, say, Korean Airlines crash almost every year. So when airplane crash, mostly all of the passenger likely to die from that crash, right? No chances of surviving there from this air crash, right? So this is actually one of the picture that collapsed in 1997. Korean Air fell down during the plane's landing in Guam. So as you see, more than 200 people plus were killed in that accident. Do you know why? Why Korean Air at the time had a lot of accidents like this? What was the problem, in your opinion? So probably you got really the right point. The cause of the airline crash is probably due to the lack of, say, like checking sometimes, technical problem or sometimes. However, lots of the Korean Air's crash at that time was not really the technical problem, but it was more like miscommunication within the cockpit, as she said. So the communication in cockpit is really important. We know that all of the passengers in the airplane has the same goals, right? They want to go to the destination safely, right? And however, like as you see here, more than 200 plus passengers they pay the price for this transportation. However, they don't know how to fly, how to move the airplane. So, on behalf of all those passengers, it is actually the job of the pilot who fly the passenger to the destination safely, right? So all of the people in the passengers does have a same goal, right? Safe landing to their destination, but none of the passengers actually can do that. So it is actually the pilot's job, right? Fly them to the destination safely. So this is a cockpit, right? Cockpit, head of the airplane. So if you look at inside the cockpit, you see main pilot here, right? And who is sitting next to it? Co-pilot, right? Co-pilot. And the main pilot. And who is behind them? Engineer, yeah, engineer, navigator, I don't know. Probably 항해사, I don't know what's in English, like navigator or engineer, whatever. So actually, 3 people in the cockpit actually running the airplane, right, on behalf of all passengers. Those 3 in charge of operating the airplane on behalf of all passengers. The problem of that crash, also, it was not really the problem of that air crash, but also this is the picture of Asian Airlines. And also, if you remember, like 2 or 3 years ago, the Asian Airlines crashed at the San Francisco airport. Fortunately, at the time, only 2 passengers were killed, right? But it was not by the accident crash, but actually 2 passengers killed by the ambulance, right? Quite ironic. But anyway, very misfortunate accident, but fortunately no one actually killed from that air crash. So the journalists of all other countries try to investigate why this problem, like Korean Air crash and Asian Airline crash. What were the problem of this kind of a crash? As you said, it may not be the technical problem or some engineer or mechanical problem, but it is more like miscommunication inside the cockpit, right? So what was the miscommunication between these 3? I remember that the pilot of the Korean Air at the time were all Korean. So they speak Korean. So probably communicating among them may not have any problem because they are Koreans and they speak Koreans. And also, Asian Airline case as well, the pilots are all Koreans, so they speak Korean. So there's no problem, like no language problem of the communication among them. So in that sense, what were the real problem within that cockpit? That is actually the question. So the main pilot, if you look at I think the pilot mostly in Korea, pilots mostly from where? Air Force, right? So pretty much like the a very hierarchical culture in the cockpit, right? So it is very hard for a co-pilot or navigator to resist something on the wheel of the main pilot. That is actually the problem. Those 3 pilots, what I call pilots, supposed to communicate well, sharing information and share the ideas of how they fly. So no one actually dominating the operating the airplane. So that's what the pilot's supposed to do. But in that Korean particular culture, the main pilot is really the leader, right? And the other one cannot say something on what he said or what she said. So that is the problem, right? So for the safety of the airline, whole airline, no one actually dominating all of the decision making, or no one actually show their leadership on its own, right? They should work together. That is the what they're supposed to be working in that airline, the airplane, right? So the point here is that corporate governance means the decision makers within the firm. So let's consider the airplane as a company, for instance. And there are some of the decision makers. The point is that no one cannot dominating the decision making, right? If main pilot try to do some strange thing or do the wrong thing, then the other decision makers, here pilots, should say something about what he did or what he tried to do to correct their behavior. So by doing so, by monitoring each other, the airplane can fly safely, right? So the problem of these two air crash is not really, as I said earlier, problem of the technical part. It is part of the part of corporate culture or part of the communication. So governance means, simply say, the key decision maker should monitor, checking each other, right, for the benefit of all passenger and for the benefit of all, shareholders in the company, for instance. So if someone dominating some decision making, then we never know. This kind of accident may be occurring again and again. So that's the point. So corporate governance means that how a company can be run smartly and effectively, not dominated by one or very few particular decision makers. So that is what we are going to try to study in chapter, I think, 3, chapter 4. Right? So, in that chapter, we just try to study the meaning of corporate governance and what is the role of who actually what construct the corporate governance, and what is the role of board of directors, and that kind of issue we'll be covering in this chapter. Again, let's say that, so this is the example of the airplane, but what about the company? So the company is just like the airplane, right? This is the company. So there are a lot of shareholders. We know what shareholders, right? Someone who has the ownership of the firms, right? Just like passengers. We are in the company by having the share of the firms, but we don't really involved in the business of the firm. So we have to choose someone to run the company on behalf of all our shareholders. So that person is what I call a top management here. The CEO, maybe the top management or director, or maybe the top management, right? So the CEO and directors are somebody who is like the pilots in the cockpits, bro. So they have to run the company for the benefit of the shareholders, right? But what if they run the company in the wrong way? So that is the question, actually. If they run the company in the wrong way, who will punish them, right? who monitor their behavior. In the cockpit, let's say that the main pilots are what you call a top management. If they try to say fly the airplane radically in like some other route, for instance, which was not supposed to they fly, then the other pilots should say something about to correct them. But what about in the company? If this top management manage the company in the wrong way, then who monitor and who check their behavior and who correct their behavior? So that is the questions. So if you say the shareholders, say one of the member of the shareholder, you feel that the 사장, CEO is now leading the company wrong, right? So what is your action? What can you do under that situation? Yeah. Excuse me. Board members. Exactly. According to corporate law, so all of you shareholders here cannot do something for, I mean, if you look at like, say, Samsung Electronics or LG Electronics, there are millions of thousands of shareholders, so they just cannot raise their own voice individually. Then it would be too chaotic. So they select a board of director, what you call BOD. So BOD, as she said, is like the representative of all shareholders, right? So they select very kind of representing kind of figures. So they, BOD members, actually monitoring their job. And if they don't like what they do something for or against them. So what is BOD? What is BOD? What is board of director? As I said, representative, right? How do you select the BOD? What?
The one with the most.
Most what? Share, right? So the largest shareholders become the BOD, right? Yeah, right. What else? Or thousands of you may choose a very smart person by collecting all of your shares and give your rights to him or her and select him as a member of BOD. And this is the case in other country, not really in Korea. In Korea, mostly the largest shareholders tend to be like the member of BOD. And the BOD, board of ISA, right? The BOD members actually become kind of doing the role of monitoring, checking, encouraging, or discouraging for their job. So that is actually how the company is running, right? So probably board of director is like the co-pilot, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think what's your name? So I think you know quite lots of mechanisms of cooperation. So they may, again, that's what we call it outside specialist, right? Outsider, sometimes we call it. So you select the best person among yourself, or you may hire some expert from outside, right? Like industry expert or very knowledgeable person for that company's operation or that business, and you may choose him as a member of BOD, right? Like Samsung Electronics, one of the huge company in Korea, the largest one. How many BOD members in that company? I'm not pretty sure, but about like 9 to 12, not that many. So 9 to 12 BOD members actually representing millions of thousands of shareholders, and they actually work for you to monitor or control or coordinating what the top management is trying to do. So that is the mechanism of how the company is actually running, right? So very simple, right? If this one is correctly checking what they do, then there is no mistake, right? If they do the wrong things, your job is what? Firing him, right? The CEO out of the office, and you hire a better one or a new one. So that's the mechanisms of organizational running. So if that mechanisms are running that way, theoretically said, then no company would be failing, right? But if you look at a lot of cases outside, lots of company actually misjudge or doing the wrong things or unethical things, damaging the benefit of the shareholders here. So which means, in theory, we try to pursue the system of this kind of a triangle, but in practice, it is very hard to realize to run the company like that. So that is actually a problem. So corporate governance means we set up the right system of this triangle. So that is what we call a corporate governance. I talked about like Enron scandal a few weeks ago. The oil company did the wrong things, right, by make forgery documentation. So if, right, so exaggerate their profit of the firms, which is a kind of a lie of the top management to the shareholders. Of course, the Enron is one of the leading companies in the world. Probably they have this kind of a system. But Enron did make that kind of wrong things to the shareholders. If the BOD members of the firm play their exact right role for the Enron CEO, probably the Enron may not really be causing that kind of a problem. So in theory, this is what the company supposed to be, but in practice, this kind of system is not really working that well. So that is the problem. So corporate governance, which is the topic of our lecture today, is how can we make a very good system of this three triangle here. So why in reality this kind of a triangle is not really working? So your job is, as a shareholder, is to choose the best person as the BOD member, and that BOD member checking their behavior. Very simple, right? But why that mechanism is not really working in reality? That is the problem. Why this one is not really working well? Yeah. Right. CEO sometimes try to do something, making kind of illegal, colluding each other with the BOD. So BOD may be corrupted, right? They should they should say something right things to do for CEO, but they just collude each other. Yeah, I think very smart. I mean, you were a senior student, told me that our freshmen are very smart, so I just knew why. If you look at the structure of the BOD member, I think, as you said, some of the members are actually could be that friendly person to the CEO or top management, and some of them should be a very friendly person from, say, a shareholder. and some of them should be selected from the employees, right? So when you actually structure the BOD, the member here should be also pursuing kind of a diversity here. So members are actually from all of the places, but still your BOD members has kind of a diverse background from actually supporting everywhere. So yeah, sometimes if you have too many like friendly BOD members to the CEO, then the BOD always say yes to CEO's job, right? So then maybe the one problem. And what else? So the point here is that in case when the CEO put their person in that BOD members for the benefit of themselves, we can have this kind of a governance problem, right? So what else? A typical problem also on the other hand is that the BOD members are not that, of course, you think that the BOD members are quite expert and smart enough, but the CEO and top managers are the real persons who manage or run the company really. So that means even though no matter how smart they are, they just cannot be smarter than sometimes CEO. So you're supposed to check them, however, you are not that brilliant or far good enough to check them. Then maybe also another reason, right? Like, so that is actually the issue here. There are a lot of realistic problems of this kind of a triangle mechanisms, but in practice, no company perfectly establishing that very good corporate governance system. So the question is how a company can build the finest and also the most good, the best corporate governance system for the companies. So, like company, they actually have at least officially one annual meeting. What I call a 주주총회, right? So in that annual meeting, what they do is that they send a letter to all of the shareholders, right? They're sending all of the shareholders, especially the shareholders, and the shareholders should attend that meeting, right? Attend that meeting, and in that meeting they select BOD. So that's what 주주총회 means, right? So when the company have the annual meeting, the obligation of the top management is that they have to report to the shareholders for what they have done in the past, right? So the CEO, top management should show their performance in the past. So based on their past performance, the shareholders select BOD members, and that BOD member determine whether they replace CEO or keep the CEO and so on. Right? 삼성물산, what's the 삼성물산 in English? 삼성물산 is one of the company of the Samsung Group as a whole. The 삼성물산 is actually doing, so this is the letter to the shareholders before the shareholders attend the annual meetings. So in that letter, 삼성물산 top management report what they have done in the past, like previous year. So I'm sorry for Korean here, but I just tried to explain what they have to report to the shareholders, right? So first, they just have to talk about their financial performance here. They just a lot of giving kind of excuses here. The global economy was not good because of the oil price, global recession. However, they made a profit, right? So that's what they say to their shareholders. And specifically, they also Samsung does have a lot of business units. So the Samsung talk about the performance of each business unit in construction part, in fashion part, in the resort business part. They have to tell their shareholders how they actually manage for each different business unit. And also, the top management should talk about their plan for the next year, right? As you see here. The next year, their plan, the management plan is risk management, rationalizing their profitability and management, and finding new business. So that may be the plan of the firms for especially in year 2006 and afterward. And also they have to talk about their target of the profitability and so on. And more specifically, they have to propose what would be the business plan for its business unit in construction, fashion, and resort. So they just try to explain more detail about their plan for the next year. So all of the item here are prepared by the top management. And shareholders here never know about, even though they have the share of the firms, but they just don't know every details about the company's operation. So based on that letter, the shareholders determine whether the top management were good or not, right? And also the letter contained the company's CSR activity, how the firm tried to do for the benefit of the society, and how the firm tried to restructure their corporate governance system, right? Here, the Samsung Mulsan set up a CSR committee in year 2015, and they had a first meeting last year. And by also the establishment of corporate governance committee, the company tried to secure the benefit of lots of shareholders and so on. So the letter to shareholders contain all about what they have done, their plan, their CSR activity, and so on. So your job is, based on that letter, evaluate the top management performance of the last year. And then in that annual meeting, based on that letter, shareholders decide who will be the new member of BOD, whether they have to select a new BOD members or keep the existing BOD members and so on. Right. So 주주총회 annual meeting, the main goal of the annual meeting is select the BOD, board of directors. So the job of the board, once you become the board of directors, so your job is select or keep or hire new CEO for the next year. And also the BOD determine the salary, how much actually the company pay the salary to the top management. And also you as a BOD member determine how you set up a new policy to secure the benefit of the shareholders here. There are shareholders who has the largest share or lots of share, but some shares holder tend to very small shares. Small shareholder doesn't mean that they can be ignored, right? Whether the shareholder has a large share or small share, they are having kind of a right to secure their benefit. So the BOD member should think about what kind of a policy they have to set up to equally treat all the shareholders well for their benefit. Right? So that is actually how the company is actually run. But again, in theory, in principle, that sounds very easy, but in practice, it is very difficult to run the company with that mechanisms well. Right? A lot of issue actually you have to think about in reality. So we are going to talk about today that part. Legitimacy and legitimation means that if your firm doesn't have that kind of a clear mechanisms of governance, then your firm should set up that kind of governance for the company's benefit. So that's what I call a legitimation. So again, the point here is that a lot of company, especially like Korean firm, for instance, do you know what is like Korea discount? What is Korea discount? You know? Yeah.
The stock price of Korean firms cheaper than the similar firms of other country because of threats of North Korea and stable political situation.
Because of political situation, right? Yeah, yeah, you are right. The stock price of Korean firms are pretty much underestimated. But you said that is because of Korean political instability?
The North Korean threats.
Yeah, probably. But however, this day, like Kim Jong-un keeps threatening Korea, but that doesn't really affect the Korean stock market, for instance. So other than that, what else we can think about for the cause of the Korea discount? It is right. Korea discount means that the Korean firms' stock price are pretty much underestimated compared to their real value. So we have to find out the reason behind that one. Yeah, North Korea used to be the reason, but I think that is not really the reason this day. A lot of like foreign investors and analysts know that even though the North Korean threatening Korea, the chances for them to wage real war probably very low because we have a strong army or whatever, right? And also, so Korea discount is underestimation of Korean company stock price, because a lot of foreign investors believe that Korean firm doesn't have a clear corporate governance system. Just like look at the like Korean Air or Asian Air in the like 10 years or 20 years ago. They bought one of the finest airplane, but they just keep crashing, right? Not because of the problem of the airplane, but because of the pilot's problem, miscommunication problem, right? Lack of monitoring problem, right? If foreign investors believe that Korean giant does have Korean global firms does have a very good insiders monitoring system, so that the chances of making wrong strategic decision making is very low, then foreign investor probably trust what they are doing. Since they trust what they are doing, probably they may determine clearly whether they invest for the company or not. But the lack of that governance system of Korean firms, the foreign investors cannot really determine whether they put their money for Korean firms and not, right? So that's why, even though their Korean firms' current performance are not that bad, but they just cannot buy Korean companies' chair because of that uncertainty, especially involved in like governance system, right? So the point here is that Korean firms tend to have very weak corporate governance system, right? Nobody really clearly monitoring what CEO's job, what the CEOs are really doing, right? If there is a kind of a well-established mechanisms of that monitoring of the top management, then you, not only the shareholders, but potential the investors can clearly see or judge what the CEO of Korean firms try to do in the near future and so on. So the part here, the legitimacy and corporate governance, this slide try to tell us how the company can build a very good governance system inside the organization so that the people outside or lots of stakeholders can clearly see what the company is trying to do. Right? So a lot of strategy, the process, the slide here listed. So after the break, before we talk more about the governance issue here, corporate governance issue, what are the two most controversy in corporate governance system? All of the firms try to set up good governance system, right? So having good governance system means just make sure that our companies are running well. So investor outside the organization can safely invest to us and so on. But the question is, there is a kind of some problems actually in the middle of setting that good corporate governance system. Two issues are critically involved in that part, which means two problems keep preventing companies from designing right, good corporate governance system. So we will discuss what are the two major problems. That problems, especially kind of a problems in Korean companies system. So we are going to talk about that one after the break. Okay. What you need to understand is here. So I think a lot of students understand what is like corporate governance. It is all about having the right mechanisms of, say, arranging mechanisms of, say, sharing powers, for instance. The top management is supposed to do a lot of decision making, but the top management also a human, right? So they do make mistakes, sometimes intentionally or sometimes unintentionally. So somebody else should monitor their job so that the benefit of shareholders, lots of stakeholders won't be damaged. So that is setting that kind of a mechanism is what I call a corporate governance. So this is actually how the corporation's hierarchy of authorities actually can be drawn. The government approve the company, right? So you have to register this is the company, and once the government say yes, you are a company, which means register. So by receiving that charter, then your firm officially now called a company. Once that kind of government permission or recognition, then your company should run like companies by having here like board of directors, and also the role of the board of directors should do something as the charter here, the government law ask you to do, right? So this is actually how the hierarchy of the organization's design. Shareholders are, we know, somebody who owns the companies, right? Even if you have, say, one share, is it shareholders or not? You are shareholders, right? If you have like millions of shares, so is it shareholders or not? So it is still shareholders. So how many shares you actually own doesn't really matter, whether you have one share or million share. Literally, the number of shares you own doesn't really matter. If you raise the argue the shareholders' right, but mostly the largest shareholder, the larger shareholders tend to have a stronger say voice for the company's decision makings as well as the BOD member election. So if you have a very small size of a share, then of course you are technically shareholders, but you are more like investors, right? Once your share price goes up, probably you may leave the company by selling your share, right? But anyway, owner of share is what I call shareholders, and the shareholders select the board of directors. That's the point. So that is actually the essence of the organization, a company in a modern economy. So that board of directors, on behalf of all shareholders, select the management here. The management here means especially the top management, CEO, and lots of small CEO like CFO, COO, and so on. And once you selected as a top management, for instance, like CEO, then you actually, as a CEO, has a right to select the employees, right? 직원. So that is how the cooperation hierarchy actually designed. But the importance in cooperation is the BOD. What is the role of the BOD and what should be the capability of the BOD? That is actually the point. And that is actually essence in again, the cooperation. So CEO mostly prepare a plan of the firms, right? But even if you set and prepare plan, you just cannot do that. You just cannot implement that plan. So you have to get the permission from, as you hear, a BOD, right? So the board of directors' job is you check the management strategic planning. So what kind of plan that the top management has, what kind of ideas for that implementation, and so on. So that is the job of the BOD. And also, again, the BOD determine the tenure of the top management, how long the CEO will maintain the position, and how much they have to receive as their, say, salary, compensation, bonus, and so on. So all the benefits of the top management determined by the board of director, 이사회. And it is actually the obligation of BOD to secure the interest of all shareholders, whether it has a 1 share or 1,000 million shares. So it is their obligation to protect your interest. But also, it is also the obligation of the BOD to secure the interest of all other stakeholders, the benefit of employees, benefit of the community, for instance, and so on. So the point is how you construct the BOD members here. That's the point. Every country does have a different system. Right? Korea has Korean styles of BOD structuring system, and Japan and Germany and USA tend to have all different regulation of structuring the BOD members. We are going to talk about that one probably on Friday. Especially like Europe case, when you actually setting the board of directors, the power of employees, the influence of laborers are very strong. Right? In Korea, when you structure the BOD, the power of top management are strong. So that's how the difference. Japan as well. All of the models that you see from the textbooks are pretty much Anglo-Saxon styles of board of director structuring. So the question here again is which countries' models of BOD structurings are most effective and successful. So that is also quite common study in board of corporate governance topic. So the key point in corporate governance is again here, because actually these members actually doing the kind of a bridging role between shareholders and management. So because of the poor performance or wrongdoing sometimes of the BOD, the whole company actually collapsed. That is the problem. Like a lot of global firms say accounting scandal or environmental scandal can be prevented by BOD, right? So the top managements are, anyway, we know that they are pretty much sometimes selfish. They sometimes run the company not for the benefit of the shareholder, but the benefit of themselves, right? By simply, for instance, expanding their business, they may receive a lot more salary sometimes. So sometimes the top managements are doing something for themselves. So it is the job of this guy to stop them, right? But a lot of the corporate governance problem actually happen by this one. So they should be very strong. So that's the point. But two things actually prevent us to designing the right BOD members here. The first one is how you structure the BOD members. I think one of our students here talked about the members of BOD can come from the insider, but also can come from the outsider. So how can you balancing the insider and outsider? That's the question, right? In your opinion, what's the best strategy to form the right composition of the BOD? Right? Do you think that more outsider is better, or do you think that more insiders are better? If you try to design the right, perfect BOD team. You guys here quite raised very opposite view, so which is perfectly right. So some scholars or researchers say that we need more outsider, and some scholars say we need more insider, because insiders know better for the management things. But as he said, also outsider can raise more kind of a objective and balanced view. So we don't know a very conclusive answer. So the point is how to structure the members of BOD. So that is the question one. Still lots of academic debate in corporate governance study. And the second one is this one. So again, the BOD is what actually? The owners, right? They are representing the shareholders. Shareholders are the owners. So BOD is actually the owners, while the management are actually what? Agents, right? Who run the company on behalf of all this guy. Right? So the question is here, the second question. So the first question is how to structure the BOD. So that is the question, not BOD. And question number two is, as we see, separation of ownership, right? As you see here, is it good rather like combining these two as one, or keep them separately. So which one is better? So that is actually this one. This issue is what I call a separation of ownership. What this mean? So can you explain what this mean here? Again, like global company, for instance, run by CEO, right? And on the other hand, there is a owners. So the owners, BOD, monitor the CEO, right? So that is what Anglo-Saxon model try to recommend all of the countries, all of the global firms. But sometimes some company even don't need board of director because their managers and owners are simply the same person. Like Toyota, for instance, the Toyota family, I don't know their name. The family of Toyota is actually the owners, right? But that owners actually run the company themselves. Korea, for instance, like Lee family own Samsung Group, right? So owners and managers are the same person. So do you think is it good or bad? So that is the question here. Yeah.
I think it's better to divide these two.
Better to divide.
Managers, because managers are usually those that are professional in the field of expertise,
Mm.
and owners are very different people who are not, who cannot, who doesn't have to.
So you said that separation is better because managers are more expert in managing the companies, right? But what about like BMW, for instance, run by the family? BMW, I just don't know the family name there. It is run by the family, but the company run by the family quite well. So if you are right, then the BMW should be already like third class company, right? But they are quite doing good. And also Ford, the American car company, also a lot case run by the Ford family still. So how can you then explain that case? If I know that answer of this question, probably I get Nobel Prize. But actually, again, these two are one of the hot debating issue in corporate governance system. A lot of researchers keep finding what is the right answer upon these questions. And again, a lot of students here maybe criticize, say here, like family-run company are bad. I agree, but a lot of cases, especially in Europe, a lot of very successful firms are run by family for more than, say, 100 and 200 years. Generation after generation, they manage the firm very good. But we also a lot of different stories, like a lot of companies simply disappear because the family spoiled everything. So lots of cases here. But also on the other hand, what is the right structure of BOD? Again, there's a European model, and there's a Japanese and Korean models, and there's a Britain and USA models. All different idea and philosophy for the BOD structuring. So actually, these two are the essence in corporate governance system. If you solve the problem of these two questions, then certainly your firm will be a better one. So we are going to talk about these two questions on Friday. Okay. Okay. Again, I will send you the notice again. The next class on Tuesday will be on Monday from 5 to 6 here, right? Here.